as I said, I am, one, Rebecca, hi, and two, solidly stereotypically a Gen X. So I assumed my computer would not work when I got here, and so I made little things on a piece of paper. So you may also see fantastic visuals, such as this, throughout the message, just in case you want to look at those as well. I accidentally put this on my keyboard while it was sitting in the corner, so I now have 3 pages of zzz where it landed on my Z key. So thank you for not deleting my entire thing. Hi. Hi. I am Rebecca Grinstead, and I am your lay delegate, or I was your lay delegate, to the 2026 Oregon-Idaho Annual Conference. And the woohoo aside, I'm pretty sure I just lost 3/4 of the people in the room. I thought we were coming to worship. What is this? So I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory of what that sentence actually means. Really, it's a big meeting that we had, and some cool stuff came out of it, and I think it may impact you and the mission of Vermont Hills United Methodist Church. So I'm here to give you the recap. I have shared before when I was, I think, the liturgist, that I am an introvert who has trained herself to be an extrovert. I also have just a touch of the sensory issues, so I'm a wiggler, I'm a waver while I talk. I'm also fairly loud. My mother is hard of hearing, so sometimes I get a little too loud, and it's really exciting. I will try to maintain even everything. So I ask your forbearance for any fidgets that you have to put up with. The stickers are amazing for those of you who need the subroutine. There you go. This computer is 6 years old, which, if you know anything about computers, means she is geriatric. And her stickers are not all 6 years old, but some of them are. So feel free to ask me later if you have any questions about the stickers. Okay, I have my fun, everything, talk to myself. Fantastic. Okay, here we go. So hello again. I'm starting for real this time. Excellent. My name is Rebecca. I was your lay delegate to the 2026 Oregon-Idaho Annual Conference. And to be reasonably sure I know that you know what that means, I'm going to give you a little bit of history. The Vermont Hills has a place in an annual conference. We'll talk about that. And I have a place in the annual conference as your lay delegate. We'll talk about that as well. I'll end with some things about the annual conference that may be of interest to you individually and for Vermont Hills. So let's start with a big picture. Really big. The planet Earth has about 11 million people on it who call themselves United Methodists. They have about 40,000 buildings to choose from to go worship in. So on the planet, 11 million folk, 400,000 buildings. The United Methodist Church, its dream was a connectional system. When it was born, and you can Google when it was born and learn all about John Wesley, every local church is linked. We're linked to other churches and we're linked to other organizations so that we can join together in mission and ministry. And I pulled a lot of this historical information out of umc.org. So the United Methodist Church has a website. If you are wanting to be nerdy, that's awesome. Go to umc.org. We are linked together, and this allows us to accomplish far more than any one local church. Again, that's the dream. People have to put dreams into practice, and sometimes that's a challenge. But the dream of the United Methodist Church was a connectional system where groups of folks that call themselves United Methodists meet on a regular basis for the discernment and decision-making at every level of our connection. The groups and gatherings are called conferences, which can get confusing later because you think I'm describing a meeting, but I'm actually describing a geography, which I'm actually describing a meeting. I'll try to walk you through. Church leaders and members in the dream are to come together in conversation or conferencing to discuss important issues and discover God's will for the United Methodist Church. And there are many layers and levels of the conferences in our structure, in our current United Methodist Church. So I'm going to do a quick geography tour, starting with the planet Earth. So we have, in all of our human wisdom, broken the planet into pieces to make it more manageable. That's probably more metaphor than I meant. But we have arranged geographical regions of our planet. So I'm going to read you the list of these 9 regions that we've decided to make. Throw your hand up when you think you hear the one that Vermont Hills United Methodist Church is probably located in. So the Methodist Church has broken the planet into these 9 regions: East Africa, Mid-Africa, Southern Africa, West Africa, Philippines, Central and Southern Europe, Germany, Nordic Baltic Ukraine, and the United States. Excellent! Excellent. Good choices all. Okay. So, regions. So now we know the name of our region, the United States. These regions have been further shrunk. So we need to make that a little bit more manageable. We can't just have the United States of the United Methodist Church. We need to have a smaller section. And so that smaller section is called a jurisdiction. So in our region of the United States, again, we have you could have a throw of hands if you want. Northeastern, Southeastern, North Central, South Central, and Western. There you go. Good choices all. Now, if you look at the insert in your bulletin, there are 2 tiny maps in your insert, and one of them is a map of the jurisdiction. The map that has the entire western United States colored blue, that's our jurisdiction. Can everybody see the blue section in the United States? That section of the world is large. So we have, in all of our human wisdom, taken that section, that western jurisdiction, and made smaller pieces of it. So again, we've got a couple of names to choose from. What do you think the smaller sections of a western jurisdiction should be called? I look at the map and think, oh, it's by state, right? No, we can't do that. We don't do it by state. We do it sometimes by state, but sometimes by a couple of states, and sometimes by a region of this half of the state and that half of the state, but they've all got names. Are the states in the names? Sometimes. It's great, really. That's why you have a map. All right, so in our western jurisdiction, we've got, jurisdiction. We have annual conferences within our jurisdiction. So within the western jurisdiction, within the blue part of that map, we have the annual conference by the name of Alaska, a California-Nevada annual conference, a California-Pacific annual conference, Desert Southwest annual conference, Mountain Sky annual conference, Oregon-Idaho annual conference. Nice, good choices all. And the Pacific Northwest. Oh no! When I was elected as lay delegate to the Oregon-Idaho annual conference, I signed up for things at the Pacific Northwest annual conference because I didn't know the map yet. So you're not alone. So the graphic in there it should help you show the ways we're going down into smaller geographical units. But you'll notice that the Oregon-Idaho annual conference is even further broken down into sections. So the second map you have in your bulletin insert shows the Oregon-Idaho annual conference and 4 districts inside. In that tinier map, those of us with eyeballs who can still see that small, you may see the city of Portland and a tiny dot in one of those districts. We are in the which district? Oh, we're doing so well. Okay, so district. There you go. So since there was a Portland dot on the district in Columbia, we can assume, and rightly assume, that Vermont Hills United Methodist Church lives in the Columbia district of the Oregon-Idaho annual conference. The western jurisdiction, oh my God, I'm so excited, of the United States region of the planet Earth. Fantastic. When I was trying to put this together, the prior selves of me that were elementary school teachers and behavior analysts were like, you're going to have to go over this a couple times. You're going to have to go up and down and up and down. People are going to hate you. But that's fantastic. We all made the journey together. I am Rebecca, and I was your lay delegate to the 2026 Oregon-Idaho Annual Conference. Does that make a little more sense now? You're not supposed to understand all the words yet, but at least you've got the geography in your head. Let me talk a little bit about the Oregon-Idaho Annual Conference. At the end of 2025, the Oregon-Idaho Annual Conference geographical area had 138, sorry, my English teacher would be horrified, 138 United Methodist churches in it. So look again at that map that has the 4 districts broken into it. The Oregon-Idaho Annual Conference has 138 United Methodist churches. I'll bring that number up again later. But those 138 churches report 15,000 members. So in the Oregon-Idaho Annual Conference, which has 4 districts, we have 15,000 people who call themselves members of the United Methodist Church. We have 6,000 people who actually go to those United Methodist churches as a regular attendee. I learned that at an annual conference. So we've taken the planet, we've broken it down, we've gone up, we've got our geography in our heads. There are a lot of pieces of information that I'm not even going to try to address today about the different annual conferences, jurisdictional things, regionals, planet-wide stuff. They all get together on a schedule. Some of them meet every year. Some of the geography areas get together once a year, some every 2 years, some every 4 years. I think for purposes of today, I'm just going to let you know, they all have their own schedule. And who goes there and what they do, they have their own book and rules and lists and things that they're going to do while they're meeting. I was your lay delegate to the 2026 Oregon-Idaho Annual Conference, and so that's what I can tell you about today. We have upcoming jurisdictional and upcoming general conference. That's in your bulletin insert as well. There's a little bit of information about that. But that's not till 2028. So let's hear about 2026 before we jump forward in time. I said the word lay delegate. I did not grow up churched. I certainly did not grow up in the Methodist church, and so I had to learn a whole new vocabulary when I joined at the age of 30. Lay delegate was one of them. Like, that doesn't sound like a thing I know. Lay delegate. Generally, there's clergy and there's lay. There you go. That's it. That's the whole definition. Way shorter than the geography lesson I had to give you. But there's 2 groups, 2 large groups. They, of course, have subgroups and intertwine sometimes. But 2 main groups of people in the United Methodist Church, clergy and lay. Clergy and lay. And I am your lay delegate. Who is your clergy delegate? Yeah, we're all pointing at the right person. Fantastic. Oh, I'm so proud of us. The Oregon-Idaho Annual Conference got together in 2026, like they do every year, to do a certain list of things. And that is, we talk about policy. We talk about rules, everybody's favorite thing. We talk about a budget. Churches send money up the conference levels, and we have to decide what to do with that money. What are we spending it on? Are we spending it on buildings? Are we spending it on schools? Are we spending it on mission work in other countries? Are we paying our staff salaries out of it? Is there insurance that we need to pay? There's a lot of logistics around the budget. Also at the annual conference, folks who have designated assignments get up and tell you how the year went. So if I'm the president of a committee, I need to tell you what I did this year because I have jobs. And if you are super curious about the jobs in the United Methodist Church, we have a riveting handbook called the Book of Discipline. It's about this thick, and it tells you all the rules and regulations of how the United Methodist Church as a whole runs itself. Chapter 11, or paragraph 11, I don't know, it has a little thingy next to it. Google will help you. Please do a search if you want to know more about that. But the people who are in charge of committees and groups need to get up and say what's been happening in the last year. There are a lot of groups. We had a 40-page report packet before we even started. And these are the people who weren't going to get up and talk. These are the people who they just asked her, please write it down. because we don't have time for everybody to get up and talk. At the annual conference, in addition to presenting the written report, there are some folks, I'm not sure how they get picked, but I'll learn that later. There are some folks who get to stand up and give their report of the year. There are also folks that bring things to be, and this is the fun part, voted on. So if we make a major change in how we do things, if there's new policy or new procedure, the body, the annual conference, the lay delegates, and the clergy have to vote before we can do the things. The annual conference for 2026 had a theme, because who doesn't love a good theme? The theme this year was Love Boldly. So these are the words that we planned for ourselves for this meeting. This was the thing we were going to do for this year. Love boldly. We passionately love God and, like Jesus, embrace and include people of every age, nation, race, gender, and walk of life. And it was based on some scripture from Matthew and John, which are quoted under the things. So all the papers that we were given had love boldly all over it. We've got the next 2 years' worth of themes planned as well. You can read all about those. Love boldly. Please keep that in your brain for the Oregon, Idaho Annual Conference. That's our theme, Love Boldly. So I go to Boise, Idaho for annual conference, because if you look at the map of the Oregon, Idaho Annual Conference, Idaho's in the name, and it is a huge part of the map. And so we go to Boise, Idaho. Well, I go to Boise, Idaho. We also had people who were attending online. And I'll talk a little bit about this later as well. Not everybody felt safe going to Boise, Idaho, because laws. It was impactful. So I'll bring that up again later. I went to Boise, Idaho. Several days worth of stuff. We had worship, so like songs and music and prayers and scripture. We had a protest song tutorial. A woman from, I'm missing the name because I'm 52 and it's gone now, but there's a group that stood up and taught us protest songs from a religious perspective. And then later we marched on the Boise Capitol singing those songs with some signs. Annual conference also involved communion. We had a worship service. We got to have communion with a lot of different people. There was a sermon. We met in a room that had some gorgeous stained glass, and I will admit to being distracted, and I missed a couple things because I was like, ooh! It was very nice. There were a lot of stories shared from the stage, a lot of motions put forward, many discussions at our tables and multiple tables and from the stage with everyone. They were all supposed to relate to loving boldly somehow. Let me give you a quick rundown of the things that I took notes on. I have a tiny little pad of paper that I take notes on, because again, Gen X, we write things on paper. I learned about Storyline Community in Southeast Portland. I'm sitting at a table in Boise, Idaho, and someone is telling me about a place called Storyline Community in Southeast Portland that I had never heard of. Please write that down if you have a pen next to you. Storyline Community in Southeast Portland. It's from a team called the Congregation Development Team. Did I know that team existed? I did not. But they got up to talk a little bit about things. There was a written report about this Storyline Community in Southeast Portland. We've been putting some money towards them. They're making a very creative fellowship to honor all of the different types of people who want to do all of the different types of things. I wrote that down. There's a male ministry at a teeny tiny church full of chatters. You know what I mean. Those people that if you say hi, you're there for an hour. A teeny tiny church has a mail ministry. They have opened up their physical address so that people who are unhoused have a place to get their mail. And when you come to pick up your mail, would you like to sit and chat? We just chat. We're chatters. We're a small church. We don't have a lot of money to deal with, but we can loan our physical address out so you can get your mail. We might play cards while you're here. We might have a clothes closet open. You want to go look through it? You just want to talk about your kids or your grandkids or the job you had when you were 16 detasseling corn in Iowa? They're here for it. Tiny church bringing forth a ministry that was very impactful to their community. I learned about lay servant ministries, free online courses if I want to learn more about the United Methodist Church and become an official lay something or other. Did I know what that meant? No. Do I know what it means now? Yes, because I looked it up. The Oregon Idaho Conference has a newsletter. It's right in my wheelhouse. Newsletters? Yes, please. They're not for everybody, but I signed up. We have disaster ministries. Got to hear about those. Think of the disaster you heard of in the last 30 minutes, the last day. The United Methodist Church is responding to those disasters. That takes money, people, time, resources. Got to learn a little bit about that at Oregon Idaho Annual Conference. The Oregon Idaho Annual Conference has a statistician. Oh, my little data nerd heart. And in his report, he talked about the numbers. If you know somebody that works in the church office here, they may have to deal with numbers. Please pray for them. Because there's a lot of numbers that are reported. At the end of 2025, I learned from the statistician that at the end of 2025, our Oregon Idaho Annual Conference has 15,237 members. Half of the number of churches we have, so line up all the church buildings in front of your eyeballs, half of those churches have 63 or fewer members. The other half have 63 or more. Now, the data nerd in me knows that you can't have 63, it has to be 63 or less or 64 or more, but I will trust the process. But you get it. Half of the churches, half of the physical churches that we have 63 or fewer members. If you were feeling like a small church that couldn't get much done, half of us are 63 or fewer members. I also learned that we have some very vocal youth in the Oregon Idaho Annual Conference geographical area. They showed up and they did not sit quietly at their table to soak in the knowledge. They were there to participate, to challenge, to stand up and be heard. We have a circle of indigenous ministries. We have truth-telling happening. Circle of indigenous ministries and truth-telling may not sound like the most pleasant experience for a 52-year-old white woman, Midwest born. I learned so much. And it wasn't always comfortable, but growth seldom is. Learned so much. We had some information on decolonizing the United Methodist Church. More on that in a minute. We heard from creation care. A very wide range of things over this few days that I was in Boise. There were votes on some of those things. There were just discussions on others. There were just reports to read on things. The stuff that we voted on, super fun. Like rules. Yeah, we're going to add a review new rules clause to the rules committee responsibility. Now that is really important to some group of people, and we needed to get it done. We did. I don't want to minimize the importance of adding rules because rules, but with all the other things that we may have talked about while we were there, I was like, rules committee, really? We have to take time to vote on this? But yes, we do. So we voted on that. We also had something to vote on about raising the minimum compensation for clergy. Again, if you're not clergy, you may be like, why am I spending time on this? Well, you have a clergy, so let's be involved in the money that they make. Not all the votes were announced ahead of time. People could get up and say, I would like us to think about, talk about, and vote on such and such. And we did that. As I said before, we were meeting in Boise, Idaho. And my understanding is that annual conference meets in the same place 2 years in a row. So we met in 26 in Boise. We were planning on meeting in 27 in Boise. There were people who couldn't come to annual conference for fear of their safety, fear of their neighbor's safety, out of a kind of a financial protest. I don't want to spend my money or my church's money in a state that supports these laws. We needed to have that conversation as a group. Do we want to come back in 27? The people who live in that area were worried that they'd be abandoned. No, we are the LGBTQIA, Two-Spirit Plus. We are these people. Please don't leave us here in Boise, Idaho. Please stay next year in solidarity. And then there were the people like, we can't do that. Lots of discussion. And we had to vote on it. And we did vote to look into having a different place in next year. We received updates on people who got homework last year. So 2025 annual conference, there's a group formed. They had to do some things. They had to come back up on the stage and report what they did. And this is the decolonialism that I was talking about earlier. If you hear the phrase AR8, it took a lot of conversation. And Anna had, bless your heart, my mid-Southern phrase coming out, but it was a difficult discussion. But again, growth rarely comes from comfort. Let me give you a scripture, just a quick moment right here, from Matthew 18:20. We read it earlier. For where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them. That's Jesus speaking to his disciples. I've been to a lot of annual conferences in places that I've lived. This is the first one I've gone to for the Oregon-Idaho annual conference. Where 2 or more are gathered, there Jesus is in the midst. So, annual conference, get that picture in your head. Jesus beside us, before us, within us, behind us, in the work. Everybody's just working for the kingdom and the kingdom. May I suggest that where 2 or more are gathered, someone is irritated. And that is okay, because irritation can be helpful. Pearls are made by irritation. A tiny grain of sand makes a pearl. We can take itchy things and we can look at them, we can name them, we can face them, we can repair, we can dig them up, get the wound clean, put something on it, and then have a better situation for ourselves. We need to have the big things discussed. Sometimes we get irritated. We are human, and we are called to love boldly. But the road's not always smooth. And it wasn't smooth all the time at annual conference. If the work is worth doing, it's worth doing, and you will be uncomfortable sometimes. It could be your implicit bias kicking in. I didn't know I felt that way until somebody said something, and then a knee-jerk reaction in my whole body, and I had to stand up and walk around the room. Other people had to walk the whole block trying to get their bodies ready for this discussion. Annual conference had its hard spots. And I'm not going to say that by the time it was over, everybody was holding hands, and it was awesome, and we were all on the exact same page. The vote was unanimous, and everybody was ready to go forward. That's not the way group works. If you've met your family, if you've met your church, if you've met anyone at the polling stations, all the things where 2 or more are gathered, someone is irritated. But annual conference had a lot of good information. I encourage you to go on the annual conference website. UMOI, United Methodist, Oregon, Idaho. It took me longer than it should have to figure out why our website was called UMOI. UMOI.org. You can see recordings. You can get a summary. There was a secretary typing notes furiously the entire time. She has a running narrative of the entire weekend. You can read everything. I don't know how she did it. If you want to learn about the social justice being done, the social justice work being done in Oregon and Idaho, it's in there for you. If you want to learn about ministries from tiny churches, if you want to learn about how much of our budget goes to camp and retreat, it's a lot. There's a pie chart in the budget. Pie charts. You can see the chunk for camp. It's amazing to me that we value camp enough to spend that much of a pie on it. Start with umoi.org. Please participate. Take 10 minutes, surf the web, take a look. Connection only works if we engage. But it fails sometimes. You reach out for help and we don't get it. We reach out with a question, we get a terrible answer. We feel like we have to rely on ourselves because historically we have. But if you can find one useful thing, one lay servant class that's free that you can take for a couple of hours that brings you closer to Christ, please grab it. If you see one good idea, maybe the mail ministry was like, we could do that. We've got total chatters at this church. We could just hand out mail and have a lovely conversation. There may be something in there for you. Please don't throw the whole system out from a bad experience. I've had several of the bad experiences. It takes courage to come back. There are a few things that I want to highlight for you in case these might be of interest. I learned through the Oregon, Idaho Connector newsletter, bless me, that we have a Connecting Neighbors training at Beaverton First United Methodist Church on September 19th. It's Connecting Neighbors is a disaster ministry. Would you or your family or your congregation or your neighbors or people that you meet at the grocery store like to be better prepared before and after disaster strikes in your neighborhood? Registration closes on Friday, September 4th, and it's free. It's an all-day adventure at Beaverton First with disaster, and it is sponsored by probably the conference, probably a church, but it's part of our connectional system. There are also those free online lay servant classes. September, October, November 2026, new classes are being published. You can find the list, you can sign up. You don't need anybody's permission, you can just go do these things. You can learn about, discovering your spiritual gifts. That's one. Life together in the United Methodist Church is another. Living our United Methodist beliefs is one. And the one that I don't understand the title to, but I will eventually, the Millennial Narrative, Sharing the Good Life with the Next Generation, which sounds like it should be about Star Trek. But it's probably not. So I've given you as much information as I could possibly write down from the annual conference. Living in community and connection is very important to me personally. I was honored to be your lay delegate to the 2026 Oregon, Idaho annual conference. Thank you for letting me take your worship time, because I feel that living in community is something that Jesus calls us to do, and it is hard. And if you aren't praying during the hard things, I'm praying during the hard things. So to me, living in community is worship. And so I appreciate you taking your worship time to listen to all of the ramblings of me at the annual conference. Please do take a look at umc.org or umoi.org. See if there's something there that speaks to you. And I will end with art from my nephew. I believe you need to see it. He got a hold of my notebook, and this is for you. So thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions about the stickers or the annual conference, please let me know.